Okay, recording.
Yep. You're recording. Oh, did we test the audio?
Yeah, it sounds good.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we good to go?
Yep.
I think so. Okay.
And am I looking at you this way?
You're looking
What's
at
the?
me.
I'm looking at you.
Yes.
Okay. Take two. All right.
So let's just start with a very basic question. What does funk mean to you?
What funk means to me, actually, is building community, because of the impact of funk throughout the community. Whether it's someone dancing on the dance floor, inspiring someone by the lyrics in the songs, the fact that funk has been on just about every major airways in and out of the country, the impact that it's had on community in the era I've grown up with funk, and as a funk, artist and performer, funk means to me actually building community.
Okay. And what makes Dayton funk specifically stand out from other forms of funk?
For me, it's the simplicity in the music. A lot of times, I go to another city, or the band is playing somewhere else, and they're like, "Oh, you guys from Dayton? Well, we're gonna play some Dayton stuff for you." And it's like, okay, and they're jamming it and they're getting busy, and I often go, well, Dayton music is actually real simple. It's a pocket. There's space in the music. I believe that's at the core essence of Dayton funk music. It's funky, it has a driving beat, but if you really listen to it, each instrument has a special place, and it's not overplayed in parts. So what makes a difference? I think it's the simplicity and the discipline in the music that makes the beat hit hard, but it's the space in between, because the keyboard part is playing a simple part because of the guitar lick. The guitar lick is playing a specific riff because of the drum pattern. It's the elements of the style of the music and the discipline in it.
So you mentioned other types of instruments involving funk. Do you have one that you hold specifically close to yourself, like your favorite instrument?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The drums, the heartbeat of it all. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And then what got you started in the funk industry?
Wow. In the funk industry was actually at age 14. I was a freshman in high school, and another student was walking down the hallway. He had a nice jacket that said New Horizons on the back. He was a quiet guy, Vargas Thomas from the group New Horizons, funk group, and we became friends. Well, come to find out, they were already working with the Trotmans and with Sapp and everyone else. So when I got the opportunity at age 14 to join them and start working with his band, that ended up tying me into the Trotman family, who I'm still great friends and play for when needed to this very day. But it all started with me my freshman year in high school, and the journey still continues.
And then that kind of goes back to what you said before about just building that community as well.
Absolutely.
And while some outsiders perceive Dayton as a small city with limited offerings, many Daytonians would counter that notion, asserting that the city boasts a rich and vibrant history. As a Daytonian, what have you noticed about the city, and how would you describe the city of Dayton's culture?
I would describe the cities of Dayton culture, when it comes to music, the arts, a city that's saturated with talent, but in the earlier years, let me be specific, maybe between the 60s and the 80s, we didn't have the level of industry that we have now, as far as opportunities with technology and things. Now, some things that, technology that the industry has evolved to today didn't exist back then. However, once again, yes, smaller city. Dayton is not LA. Dayton is not New York. Dayton is not Atlanta. However, Dayton was rich in innovation and artistry. So I have always felt that Dayton is rich and very broad, very big when it comes to talent. But I believe, my opinion, in earlier years, we didn't have the visibility of the industry. I'll clarify that. You go to LA, you can see CBS Records. You can over those studios, on such and such side of town, they're doing, As the World Turns, or the theaters on another strip, or concerts and recording studios on another strip, but it's so visible and vibrant. Here, that visibility wasn't there, but we didn't lack in creativity and talent. And now thinking 2024, we now have the opportunities, such as being in this studio right here today, where the industry now exists here. I feel we're at a great place with great balance.
Right, and then you also brought up like the '60s, the '80s, and then even to now. So, seeing that funk emerged from a backdrop of social unrest and injustice, how can you elaborate on the transformative power of arts and music and basically funk?
Well, when we talk about the community, the culture, social justice, injustice, or what have you, music has no color. And one thing I know when I see the audience that I've been playing for since my childhood, age 14, I had the opportunity to play with the Dayton Philharmonic Orchestra when it was under the direction of Isaiah Jackson. Well, let's fast forward now to a couple years ago. We did the Dayton Funk All-Stars, a concert, in concert with the Dayton Philharmonic Orchestra with Neil Gilliman at the helm. And what do we have there? We have black musicians. We have white musicians. So we can't undo what has been done in the past, but the thing we can do is be intentional on how we continue to move forward.
Okay. And talking about moving forward, what was your biggest obstacle you would say that you faced trying to bring funk forward or trying to transform the times?
Great question. My biggest obstacle was my transition from 8th grade to ninth grade going into high school and not being able to sight read music at the time. Grew up playing in church, grew up watching the Trotmans and Lakeside and Ohio Players. So many of those funk artists are like uncles to me, and many of those are very close and dear friends. With that being said, though, to answer your question, my challenge was, it was great, I feel, being gifted and talented, but when it came to being able to sight read, that was an area that was challenging for me, and that got fixed. I ended up going to Dunbar High School, where I had a great music theory teacher there at the time, Willis Coker, had a great band teacher, and more, and that created the balance and got rid of the challenge. So once I began to be able to sight read, that put me in a different place, as a writer, as a performer, and also opportunity to work, because there's power in being able to sight read music, which I love.
Good. And how has Dayton's cultural backdrop played a role in shaping iconic artists like yourself, contributing to both personal journeys and the broader musical identity of the city?
Sustaining the legacy of innovation, period. We have innovation in aviation, all the inventions that were, birthed here, but it's the same way with music and hit records. Sustaining the legacy of the music that was birthed here that's played all over the world. Not only does it sustain the backdrop, it keeps the backdrop, but more so keeps the culture of that style of music that's not even limited to clubs. For example, Roger Troutman, he played his talk box on on a hit record gospel song. Hold On, A Change Is Coming by the Sounds of Blackness. There's a version with talk box on it. So funk isn't just limited to this club jamming music. Once again, funk music brought bands together, it brought writers together, and I believe that's the essence at the core that helps build community.
Okay, and then you said that word legacy. What type of legacy do you hope to leave behind for future artists who hope to learn to sight read and produce their own music? What legacy do you hope to leave?
I hope to leave behind the legacy of younger writers, artists, musicians, upcoming aspiring artists to continue to write and be innovative, to stay inspired. I hope to leave behind some works that have been done collaboratively, independent-wise, or maybe in concert form, inspiration for someone to believe in themselves on what's inside them, because I came up, with artists as mentors, playing their music, but they never asked me to become them. The Trotmans never said, well, Deron, you play with Shirley Murdoch, all the time. We're your friends, but they never asked me to become them. They said, but do what you do. And that's what I pass on to the youth when I have the opportunity to mentor. So I believe, in answering your question, in sustaining legacy and what to leave behind is inspiration for someone to believe in themselves, so we can have new music, and no matter what category it comes in.
Okay. And then speaking of the youth, although other genres like hip hop and rap, we recognize beats of those artists have been sampled using some of the iconic sounds of Dayton and people are saying that funk is dying or funk is dead. But in your opinion, how would you describe the state of funk in today's world?
I would say the state of funk is, I think it should be added in a curriculum somewhere in schools to study the history of it. Because think about it, funk now isn't just limited to the records that were made that end up becoming CDs, now that ended up becoming MP3s and downloads now. Funk is all throughout music, throughout commercials. You know, just a couple years ago, California Love was performed halftime at the Super Bowl. So funk wasn't just limited to the records or radio play. Funk is in a lot of different places, movie screens, once again, commercials, community. Funk is all over the place.
Okay. And then you said funk is all over the place, but where do you think funk comes from?
Funk, for me, that's a good question. I've always had this wonder, is there a cell somewhere in our body, in our bloodstream, where the groove lives? Because when you think about funk, it's feel good music. It comes from what we make it by our life experience. And I say that if you think about, it's one thing to talk about the category, which is funk, but what makes up funk? The beat, the lyrics, the performance, a lot of times the wardrobe, the costuming on stage. So when you factor in those elements, I believe it just starts on the inside and the rest is what pours out, creatively based upon each individual artist or group on how they present their funk.
Okay. We're going to shift gears a little bit. During the 60s and spilling into the 70s, the civil rights movement was a huge event happening all over the United States. At the time, Dayton was one of the most segregated cities in America and experienced several race riots that led to injuries and even deaths. What was your personal experience for these events, and how was it like living in Dayton during that time?
Well, I was born in the latter part of the 60s. But when I think of the 60s, I think about my parents. So, which had an impact on me, obviously, right? And I was much younger in the 60s. But I would say, the impact it had on me was just being mindful socially what was going on in the community. And the household I was raised in, which was very musical, and also very blue collar, too. A lot of my family worked, in the GM plants. So I had a balance, which gave me great work ethics, I feel. But dealing with social issues, concerns, but also not dwelling on that, looking at the positive things, what kept me balanced, it was the fact that being honest, being real, what was happening in society, but intentionally from my end, what was I willing to do? Was I going to be a complainer and go fuss or fight for things that I couldn't change? Or do what I do now is look for the good, and if change needs to be done somewhere, how about modeling it instead of doing a bunch of complaining? Modeling the positive side of things that we want to see.
Okay. And you mentioned before that you performed, and you even performed at the Levitt Pavilion several months ago.
6,000 people.
And how does it feel to perform in front of 6,000 people and just seeing a whole mix of emotions out there?
It's interesting. What it feels like is very humbling. When I look out over a park of 6,000 plus people, they're seeing how we're dressed, how we're grooving, having a good time. What I'm seeing are all different kind of races: black, white, Hispanic, Mexican, African. I'm seeing different levels of life, if you will. You have homeless folks out there. You have folks out there that are well off. You have the whole mental health side of it. You have some people out there that could just be struggling with some things. So what I see is community off stage, in hopes that what we're delivering is, if all these people can come together because of this genre of music, which still has proven itself even in 2024 by the thousands in Dayton, Ohio, that's why I believe funk impacts community in a good way.
Okay. And just a a question for myself. I just want to hear your answer to this. If you could perform with any funk artist, like dead or alive, who would you perform with?
Ooh-wee. And I perform with many. If I could perform with a funk artist, dead or alive, I've been in his presence, George Clinton. I was at a NAMM conference in California many years ago, and he was out there. I want to say he was on the John Lennon's educational bus, and I was out there, you know, as a clinician, and I got a chance to go on the bus, and he was on the bus. And after seeing, you know, his documentary, his research, I think that would be someone really great to hit the stage with because of the essence of and respect to those who created a genre of music that still exists to this day. But the brighter side of that are the doors of opportunity of what that music brings still to this day.
Okay. And then you perform with the Dayton Funk All-Stars, and then with the iconic funk history of Dayton with bands like Ohio Players, Lakeside, Phazo, Zapp, to name a few. What prompted the creation of the Dayton Funk All-Stars?
The Dayton Funk All-Stars was designed in the year 2000 by Tony Silky T. Allen. I'm the co-leader of the Dayton Funk All-Stars, and I've been right by his side all 23 years. When Tony came and got me, actually, I was the last one that he selected to get in the group. That wasn't intentional, it just worked out that way. But I remember the vision and the mission that he and I talked about, which was, you know, he's like, Deron, I would like to see where we model, once again, community, where we have, and we've done this, we've had, God rest his soul, Marshall Jones, bass player of the Ohio Players when he was alive, when he sat in with the Dayton Funk All-Stars. Down at GILLY'S when it was open, we've had recently Stephen Shockley, guitarist and phenomenal songwriter for Lakeside. I've done educational performances, for example, at the PNC Arts Annex, where Terry Trotman, Lester Trotman, they came down and just a fellowship with some students that were backstage for inspiration and things of that nature. I've been down there with a good friend, Keith Harrison, you know, Grammy, you know, award winner, you know. So those guys, when it comes to my relationship with them, once again, building community, building relationships. When I think about more bounce to the ounce, you know, that gets us back to George Clinton, you know, who had his hands in that. So once again, after seeing his documentary, I believe to hit the stage with him would just be, you know, the ultimate, you know, respectfully because of those that pioneered and birthed things. And let me be clear about that. When I was talking about birth things, that provided opportunities for musicians to work, for vocalists to work, to tour, to write, to record, to produce. Yeah, I think George Clinton would be the ultimate because, you know, he has his roots in Dayton, you know, from once again, you know, working with, you know, Roger Troutman, the Zapp family and more. But it was, you know, people from outside of Dayton that had Dayton influence or worked collaboratively with Dayton artists and helped us continue to grow.
Okay. What song would you perform?
Oh, it would be this side of me has Atomic Dog. This side of me has, I don't know, One Nation Under Groove. But I'm Dayton Funk, so it had to be more bounce.
Couple more questions for you. If you could go back in time and talk to yourself while you were just getting into the funk industry, what would you tell your younger self?
I would tell my younger self to take music theory a lot earlier. You know, I didn't start learning how to read music till I was in high school. But from that point on, it soared. It wasn't hard. It was just being exposed to it and being driven to it intentionally because, you know, as much as I love funk music, I love gospel, I love country, I love R&B, I love a cappella music. And that's because once you get into that space where not only you're working out of the spirit of the gift of what we have, but being able to sight read just takes it even higher. And it takes stress off. You know, being able to sight read means you don't have to memorize everything. You can write it down, right? Play it back. So, yeah, but I would definitely, my younger self, you know, I wish I would have started learning how to read music at age 5. I'm curious what I would have been doing through middle school, you know, as a writer. Because once I started in high school, to give confirmation to that, once I was learning how to read, I was playing with my church choir, and it was a gentleman by the name of Robert Johnson who composed like 5 songs, original songs, that our worship leader had wrote at our church. And that opened up the door of opportunity for us to play with the orchestra. So imagine being in high school down at the Memorial Hall surrounded by the orchestra with our, you know, youth choir. But ultimately, at the same time, I was getting mentored, you know, and being introduced to the TROTWOODs at the same time. So I was getting sight reading. I'm already surrounded by not only stars at the time, but not knowing how long their, you know, funkism was going to continue, you know, to evolve. And because I'm talking beyond the records, I'm talking about in the movies and things of that nature, you know. So definitely my younger self, you know, learn how to read earlier.
Okay.
I can do it now with no problem, but a little earlier, I just can't imagine, you know, where, you know, I would have been. But everything has its season.
That's true. We can take a quick water break real quick.
Okay.
How much time was we're about 20 minutes right now? Okay. 21 minutes.
Funk is in the water. Lakeside.
It's just not on the.
Yeah, it's trying to it isn't on this. I'm like, oh, I can't really
It's
tell.
on the back, so I think it's on the back.
Yeah, and it pulled me over. And I hit the
I was
button, but it
freaking
didn't
out.
say on the front of the green part, and I was like, it should be.
No, it does.
Yeah.
Okay. I just have a couple more questions, and then one crucial question at the end. I'm excited to see your response to that. But during your formative years, how did you initiate your journey into music, and what was the learning process like for you?
Coming from a musical household, I was surrounded by it. One half of my family, like I said, was very blue collar, you know, GM plants, you know, you're gonna work this 9 to 5, you're gonna have work ethics, you're gonna do this, you know, and they were leaders though. You know, my grandfather was a supervisor. The other side of my family, you know, I go to my grandmother's house, there's a Hammond B3 organ, a piano, my dad's bass, you know, very musical, you know. So, you know, with that being said, that was the foundation, you know, that launched things.
Why is it crucial for your family group to not only perform together as a family, but also to pass on the shared passion for music? And how does your interconnectedness enhance the significance of your musical journey? Kind of relating back to what you said about community.
Yeah, give me the first part of that question again, because it's 2 parts, and I want to be clear on both.
Gotcha. So, why is it crucial for your family group to not only perform together as a family, but to also pass the shared passion for music?
Great question. First thing, it's the off-stage relationships that I know makes the difference, because we don't call ourselves a band, we call ourselves a family. Everyone that's in our circle. If you really think about it, a band's average performance time could be as little as 45 minutes, or maybe it's a long 3-hour, 4-hour night, just depending on the event. But we actually spend thousands of hours together off stage. And when we can model, first of all, amongst one another, respect, loyalty, commitment, and creativity, I believe that sets the tone for what others see watching us. Because when we're performing, you know, it's for all ages, senior citizens, seasoned folks, middle school kids, elementary kids, pre-K, all walks of life, all ages come to concerts. So I am very intentional about what and how we model, and musically, and also, you know, being approachable to people.
Okay. And then the second part to that question, how does the interconnectedness enhance the significance of your musical journey?
The interconnectedness. Because, relating back to a question I answered earlier, because of the discipline in the music, it's one thing to get funky and just jam, but the interconnectedness to me is being true and respecting the arts and the craft, the creative works, and the delivery of it.
Okay. And then, as we stated before, the 60s and 70s, there was race riots going on in Dayton, but why do you see the sustenance of vibrant arts such as funk and music culture, particularly funk, as crucial for Dayton's healing?
Well, once again, this music, a lot of the hits that are still played today, that are in commercials today, that are in movies today, that's still on radio today, was birthed during that era. A lot of times when we separate the lyrics from the grooves, a lot of the songs, tell stories. They represent a lot of things that were happening in the community. But the part that I feel is inspiring and also has a lot of positive motivating energy is the fact that no matter what the content or the subject was in the song, it had a groove to it. You're still gonna be doing this, It's like, okay, just like Motown, Motown had their flavor. It had the choreography, the look, the whole nine. Cincinnati had its own flavor of funk, But Dayton funk, oh my goodness, it will groove you. Not only in Dayton, but all around the world, as it does to this very day.
And then you said funk tells a story. If you could describe funk in one word, what would it be?
Community.
Community. I somehow knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
And then one last question. It can either be like a short response or a long response, but
Okay.
Do you think funk is dead?
No, and no time soon.
No time soon. Okay. Anyone else got any other questions?
Yeah, so I'm gonna get them.
Oh, okay. What challenges have you seen in the Dayton funk community?
What challenges
Yes.
have I seen? What challenges? That's a good question. I would say if there's a challenge, it would be maybe the opportunity to perform original music. Think about it. When you go to the bigger cities, it's all about writing and innovation. So I believe if we have more opportunities for not only current artists and upcoming artists to be able to perform new music, the Levitt Pavilion is an excellent representation of the fact that, part of their vision and mission is for, artists to hit their stage and perform their original music with state-of-the-art sound and lighting, all professional level. I love that because that's what I saw or what I see when I go to bigger cities. If I go to a venue and it's like, well, we want you to play top 40, and I'm playing somebody else's song. But what if we have more visions that, hey, we're going to have such and such band, but they're going to play their music tonight. Think about it. All the hits that we're talking about was music that somebody wrote that a lot of us are sustaining, plus our own songs that we've written. What if there's a paradigm shift over time where we start hearing more original music performed and people being excited about it? I remember the Dayton Funk All-Stars first concert at the Levitt Pavilion. We had, I remember, a little over 3,000 people many years ago, our first time performing there. It was 90 minutes of all original music. I know they were thought, well, y'all represent Dayton Funk. Y'all gonna play all players, y'all gonna play Sapp, you're gonna play all the guys you represent. Some of you guys even work with them or play with them, or original members sitting in. But the fact that I remember this like yesterday, other musicians looking at us going, they really did a 90-minute show of all original music. And it was like, yeah, because this is what's going to sustain it. We need new music. We have the music we're sustaining, legendary, global, but at the same time, funk is not dead because it's all over the place. That's obvious. But having opportunities for the history of it to be out in the community. What does it look like? So it's a blessing that we have a funk museum. But I feel that artists need the opportunity to be able to perform more original music with the same excitement that artists or even local bands get to play cover songs.
Okay. Did I ask your question correctly?
Yeah. Did you like that? I mean, that's for real.
Yeah.
Think about it. You go somewhere, oh, we need you guys to play Brick House, and we want you to play funky, and maybe you play some funk stuff and all that. And it's like, yeah, well, I want to play my songs. Oh, well, but then I'll go to you go to Chicago, LA or somewhere. Hey, we want you to come, and we just want y'all just to play your stuff. We want you to be you. And I was like, wow. Back to your earlier conversation. We're in a city saturated with talent, but now the industry, what UD is doing here, we have studios, we have state-of-the-art equipment, we can do editing, we can do filming. A lot of these tools didn't exist back then, obviously. Some have evolved to this point. But for me, I know the power of the tools, of AI technology, so I'm in a situation where I understand both eras. I understand traditional music, instrumentation, analog, sound equipment, etc., boards, the whole nine. Also understand digital technology, recording, editing, mastering, AI, and the whole nine. Now that we have this both here, we're in a hot spot. We're in a hot spot. That's why we need you all to do what you're doing to keep sustaining things. That's why funk isn't dead. It has evolved into a space, but unless we have opportunities where, especially artists, can continue to evolve, and how do we evolve? How did we end up with an airplane in the air? Because they built a plane, right? The Wright brothers. And then they took it to the air, right? The cash register. Think about it. So let's take that mindset and shift it to music. Well, let's be innovative. Let's write. Now let's have a place to perform it. If the Wright brothers plane hadn't gone up in the air, would it have been the same impact? And flew, right? What? What's going on? Totally love that. They're phenomenal. That invention. Same with music. We can do this at home. We can jam. We can play. We can write. But what if it never hits the stage? That's what I love about the Levitt Pavilion. They're like, hey, we love cover music, but we want the artists to hit this stage to play their original stuff. And they have state-of-the-art lighting and sound. That's why stuff is still alive. The industry has now come to Dayton. I'm glad I've lived long enough to see it and be a part of it. So if funk is dead, why did 6,000 people show up recently? I'll wait.
Because it's not dead.
Bingo.
Anyone else have any other questions?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Just make sure to keep looking at Kai after I ask.
Okay.
Just for the camera purposes.
Absolutely.
So how do you personally feel about sampling and hearing recent artists, new artists, continue songs that were big hits back then and kind of keeping that part of music alive? Maybe songs that you were there to kind of experience with the Troutman brothers and everything. How do you feel hearing that music back then still be present in songs today?
Okay, great question. How do I feel about sampling, stems, snatching tracks and sounds off of them, loops, and all that kind of stuff? I love it. I love it because, as I mentioned earlier, I understand both worlds. So back then, earlier years, if we wanted to do a remix of something that was done by tape, you record it, you splice it, you put those pieces together, Students today would be like, what? Now, fast forward 2024, now we can sample, we can take a Zapp song, we can take a Phazo song, we can take a Lakeside song, we can take any song and extract the beat out of it. No, extract the whole song and then digitally go to a chop feature and then break all those different elements down where you have sound separation. Digital technology can take somebody's song, which this, and Now you have the drums, you have the vocals, you have the chorus, all separated and clean. How do I feel about it? I think it creates opportunity for creativity when used correctly. Now, if it's something I don't agree with or I wouldn't feel good about, it would be taking the music from the past and just using it and putting something on top of it. No, that's original works. But if someone wants to take something and then be able to chop it up, and then, because maybe they like the sound of that drum. So you're not going to use the drum pattern or the drum beat, but you're going to use the sound of it. I think that's keeping the sound alive when being used creatively, but they're not taking someone's work and putting something on top of it. I believe there's a creative, respectful way to use music that's very historical in a creative way, long as if it's not interfering with the core part and the integrity of it. But when someone just takes somebody's track and just put their voice on top of it and just use it as it is, well, no, that wouldn't be something that would be favorable to me. But I love, technology being able to take sounds and then reproduce something because of the essence of it, and which pushes that person to be creative. But if somebody just takes a drum loop and take a pattern and just take somebody's work, and I'll be like, well, wait a minute, hold on. Sit down at the drum set and make your own loop. If the beat is boop, boop, cat, boop, 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 cat in the record, all right, well, get your drummer friend. Go play it and make your own original sample, and then you won't have to deal with any infringements or, I'm just saying, but I love the opportunity because think about it. Digital technology doesn't sound the same. Let me clarify. When I was watching my father and many of the other artists I had as mentors in the studio, back in the day, we would have to use devices to get rid of noise, hisses in the sounds, in the mix, in the recording. Well, now today, everything is clean. Everything is bright, it's crisp, it's clear, it's digital. So looking at both worlds, I'm like, 60s, 70s, and 80s, we were using technology for what it was at the time to take things that had noise in it to make it clear. Today, everything is clear once you start. But what's over here is something about the soulfulness of the sound. It's warmer, Technology, things are already bright, clean, crisp. You don't have to clean it up. But what seasoning do you put in it, right? You know what I mean? It's like seasoning food. I believe music in the earlier years had a certain sound that was captured, because of the tubes and the amplifiers, and just because of, I'm not going to even call it technology, the instrumentation that was available then. Today, you can go in and have a nice, clean sound, but what is the seasoning that you put into it? So, I like sampling when used correctly and creatively.
Okay. And then, Liana, you had a question?
Yeah, I do have a question. Do you want to say it?
Yeah.
It's a great answer.
That was
Yeah.
If you could perform anywhere in the world, where would you want to perform at?
Wow. If I could perform anywhere in the world, where would I perform at? You know what? I would like to perform on a beach, on an island.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That I haven't done. So let me be clear. Like Hawaii or somewhere, outdoor stage, all the ocean, the essence, the breeze coming through. Man, I like that just thinking about it. But yeah, I would like to be, getting real funky on the island somewhere, with the ocean in front of me, behind me, and we just out there just grooving in the sand.
I would love to be there too.
Yeah, me too, man. Great question. All of them were great.
Any other great questions?
Would you say that like music kind of lost its soulfulness once a lot of it became digital? Or that's, there's still great music nonetheless, but would you say that once it wasn't really people making the sound anymore, would you say it kind of lost its soulfulness?
I think, good question. Has music lost its soulfulness because of digital technology, or things are easier to record now? I think it comes from the writers. I think music has continued to evolve. So because I've always had this saying in my head, I'll share it with you, that every heart has a beat, every voice has a melody. Soulfully be creative. So I feel, think about it, we go from what they had back in the day, 45 records, 33 and a thirds, LPs, all the way up to 8-track tapes, then what, CDs, and then just fast forwarding, you know, to downloads, AI technology. I think as long as we have human beings putting an effort or being creative in writing material, it will have soul. If the technology is creating it, I'm not so sure. But long as if it's an 80-year-old musician who was a superstar or just a musician in his day and was vibrant and was writing, or a performer, even if it's just a local performer, there's soulfulness in it. Or if there's a youth today sitting at his computer, looping, cutting, pasting, making tracks, he's creating out of his heart. He's creating out of his soul. So I feel as long as the human person, the human being, is creating the music, whether it's with live traditional instrumentation or with digital technology, it will have soul in it. But when the technology starts creating it on its own, not so sure.
And it kind of goes back to that thing you said earlier about if you could define Dayton as one word, community. You can get community with people, you can't get it with AI.
Yeah. 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 It'll be thinking, it'll spit something out. Maybe some pictures and a whole bunch of people. And that's cool, you know. But the soulfulness comes from this right here. Think about it. When we think about funk pretty much birthed what? Bands. Bands of people. From where? The community. It brought people together. Then when they get together, get their show together, then what do? We go to venues. We meet more people, right? All right, so now we're on stage, we have more people. Then what's next? Well, sound and light person, videographer, camera person, we have more people. Wow. Then who comes in the door? People from all over. So now we have a whole community who's come because of what? Because of this genre of music. And respectfully, any other genre of music. But funk has its place, and that's why funk still lives. Now, if I show up at the Levitts, or the band shows up at the Levitts, and there's 6 people down there, I would have some concerns. But long as thousands are still showing up, and here's the crazy part, our crowd has gotten bigger every year. And we've been at this 23 years. I've been playing funk longer than 23 years. But as a band representing the vision and the mission of musicians from all kind of groups just coming together to represent the Dayton sound, our audience continues to grow. Our venues run out of room. And if that's dead, then I have to say they're wrong for somebody that thinks that way. Yeah.
Any other last minute questions? All right.
Yeah. I mean, y'all got, the facts from someone who's in it, And, we all have a story. A lot of us come up from different eras and things. But I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. There's a lot of respect that comes along with it. It's not just jamming. It's a way of life. It's a way of doing things. That's why when you all called, no matter what it took, if we had to change dates or what have you, we have to pour it into community. Why? Because I've been in y'all seats where somebody poured into me, came by. If you would have told me at age 14, Sapp, Shirley Murdoch, Dale DeGroat, Lester Trotman would still be in my life at 57 and still rocking all around the world. So that's why we pass it on, and that's what will continue to sustain it. man. So if they want to sample nowadays, you know, be creative. 'Cause as long as if we have humans doing it, we all have a soul. So keep it funky.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think we're good.
You good?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we need to, who's y'all